Welcome back. This is Becky Thomas Iyer, and today I'm going to label this podcast, It Isn't the Tic Tacs. But before I share with you what that means, I sure hope we all were better at lifting and building up others since the last podcast, which was about being a balcony person. I hope that you were able to make a difference in other people's lives, and I hope that you thanked the balcony people in yours. That is what this life is all about, loving and lifting others. Okay, let me explain the Tic Tac story. Several years ago, a friend of mine and her family came to visit from California to stay for a few days. Now, as you know, I have candy throughout my entire house, so it's a child's dream to stay here. She has a boy named Matthew. At the time, he was about 7 years of age, and Matthew loves sweets as much as I do. So you can imagine when he walked in the house and he saw candy throughout my entire house. Well, I sat down both of the boys and I said, let me just go over the rules with you while you're staying here at my house. And I said, well, actually, there's only one rule. And that is that if you want to eat something, don't ask for permission. Don't say, Mom, can I have a cookie? Or Becky, can I have a piece of candy? If you want it, just eat it. Don't ask. Well, you should have seen Matthew's eyes as they grew, and he looked over at his mom, and she shrugged her shoulders as if to say, well, Becky's in charge. So needless to say, Matthew had a blast. He ate whatever he wanted whenever he wanted it. One of the nights we went to Chuckarama, an all-you-can-eat buffet. Oh, he loved that. The next night we had pizza. He was in heaven. Well, in the middle of the night, Matthew vomited all over my basement. The next day, his aunt came over to visit and said, Matthew, what happened? Why did you vomit? He thought for a moment and then he said, I think it was that Tic Tac that I had last night. Well, we started laughing, and of course we realized real quickly that Matthew was brilliant. If he had blamed it on the real issue, which was all the sweets and all the goodies and all the overeating, his mom would have put boundaries around that. But by blaming it on the Tic Tacs, he could live without the Tic Tacs in his life if his mom were to come back and say, Matthew, that's it, no more Tic Tacs. He could live without that. Well, I have never forgotten that story because so often in life we blame things on the Tic Tacs because it's so much easier than dealing with the real issues. Let me give you some examples. Let's say that a couple is struggling in their marriage. They may not be getting along, or they just feel that they are falling out of love. In an effort to save the marriage or fix it, they may decide that a vacation getaway will do the trick, or getting a couples massage, or going on a shopping spree, or buying a new boat, or even having another child will fix it and get them back in sync with each other and will help them to fall back in love. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of these things, but they are usually just the Tic Tac. The real issue is most likely pride, selfishness, prioritizing, or something along those lines. But it's so much easier to go on a vacation than to swallow our pride, or it's so much easier to buy a boat than it is to deal with our selfish desires. Being single for forever, I think I tried every flavor of Tic Tac that there was. There were times that I was just sad and sometimes miserable. I was lonely as my life was not going as I had hoped it would. So I planned a lot of trips and excursions. I pampered myself with massages and new clothes. I bought things for my home and even did a ton of service for others. Now, there was absolutely nothing wrong with any of those things. In fact, they were all pretty awesome in and of themselves. But at the end of the day, they were only Tic Tacs to my sadness and loneliness. The real issue for me was comparing myself to all my married friends. It was managing my expectations or temporarily losing an eternal perspective. Those were the real issues. Eventually, I learned that all those trips and pleasures were not the answer. I needed to learn to manage my expectations. I needed to learn to be grateful for what I did have versus what I didn't have. And I needed to cling to those things that would help me to keep an eternal perspective. I needed to get my head out of the world and into those things that were eternal, that brought joy, not just pleasure. That was the solution for me, and it worked. Okay, let me give you another example. Have you ever seen a little child get so mad that they throw their favorite toy or their favorite food down to the ground? Chances are they either wanted control or they just needed a nap. Their mom wouldn't say, "Whoa, he must not like that toy anymore," or "Gee, he doesn't like food anymore." She knows that the food and the toys were just the tic-tac. The child was tired or mad. She gets it. However, as we get older and are able to reason and communicate, that is when we start to discover that there are tic-tacs, and it's easier to blame those than to get to the real issue. Then we not only fool ourselves, but we begin to fool others. I don't know exactly when it starts. For Matthew, he knew by the time he was 7, and I'm sure it's different for each child. But by the time someone is a teenager, they have usually discovered a rainbow of tic-tacs. A teenager will come up with a variety of reasons as to why they are late, why they are mad, why so-and-so is not their friend anymore, why they don't want to go someplace or do something. And not realizing that the reason they give likely might be a tic-tac, parents might think that taking them shopping to cheer them up or buying them something that they really want or not requiring them to do their chores or participate in the family activities will fix things. Just remember, if it was a tic-tac, it won't fix anything. It might make them happy for a day or a week, but if the problem comes back, you know it was just a tic-tac. To get to the heart of the issue, you might take alone time with that child for some serious bonding. You might need to take the time to help that child to feel loved or grounded, but it's so much easier to buy them something or give in to their wishes than spending quality time together. Okay, here's another example. Let's say you have a child who is struggling to make friends and she is lonely or sad. So she suggests going on study abroad to Peru or Africa in the summer. That's awesome, right? She can do so much to help others and she can hopefully make friends and have an experience of a lifetime. So you agree and send her on her way. She does have a great experience. It was awesome, but it probably wasn't the solution to her initial problem. Chances are she'll be back to where she was within the next 6 months of returning. It was a tic-tac to her real challenges, but it sounded noble. It was easier to dish out the money to send her than to deal with the real issue. Now, I'm not saying there is anything wrong with the tic-tacs. Like I said, I used service all the time as my tic-tac. The difference is that now my service is for the other person and not as an escape or validation of me. It's not a tic-tac anymore to serve my needs. It's simply to help others. All I am saying is it's just important for us to notice the difference so that we can get after the real issue. Do you see what I mean? So often, whether it's conscious or subconscious, we are trying to solve a problem with the tic-tacs because the real issue is not something we want to deal with. And then we are surprised when a year later we are back in the same place or still have the same problem that we had before. We can even see this on a national level. There is more money used on government programs to help with the youth, crime, education, outreach programs, counseling, after-school programs, drugs, alcohol, and yet crime and rebelliousness and disrespect has only increased. Social ills are perverted and worse than ever, and they just keep wanting to spend more money as if that is the solution. In most cases, the money is just a tic-tac. They are not getting to the real issue, which I personally believe is the breakdown of the family and the absence of God in our lives. I believe that much of our problems are due to fathers and mothers not being there for their kids and not being grounded themselves. All the political correctness and simply removing God from our day-to-day lives. But that's just my opinion. Regardless, we have learned that more and more government programs and money has not solved the problem. There are many who deal with depression, anxiety, and low feelings of self-worth. In fact, probably all of us deal with that at some point in our lives. And many times when we are struggling with something because we are depressed or not feeling good about ourselves, we quickly blame others for not being there for us, for not including us, for not understanding us, or anything else. But in reality, it wasn't that anyone did anything wrong. We were just depressed, or we were just having a bad day. And instead of dealing with that, it's easier to blame it on the tic-tac. on others, on our job, or what is not in our life. We all do this, every single one of us. And naturally, if we are playing the role of a victim, or if our kids are playing the role of a victim, then we are more likely to blame it on the Tic Tacs than someone who's not playing the role of a victim. Speaking of playing the role of a victim that I spoke about in podcast 2, my friend Christy was telling me the other day that she sat down with her 9-year-old last week after her daughter had a rough day at school and was treated unfairly and harsh by her friends. Christy wanted so bad to call the teacher to protect her daughter and to run to her daughter's rescue. Instead, she took the opportunity to explain what it meant to play the role of a victim and the importance of taking personal responsibility. And so together they listened to the second podcast about playing the role of a victim. She said that her daughter listened to every word, and then together they talked about it and identified ways that she could take responsibility. I was so excited to hear this because I would hope that these podcasts are simple enough for all ages to understand. Anyway, my challenge to you is to start to notice the Tic Tacs in your lives and in the lives of your children. It will become a part of your everyday conversation. You'll say things like, is that the real issue or is that a Tic Tac? When I was dating Daryl, I told him the Tic Tac story so that as we were discussing things, he would understand where I was coming from when I would say, I don't know, I believe that's just a Tic Tac. We were able to immediately get to trying to find out the real issue that we were looking for. Speaking of Daryl, it's been almost 3 months since we've been married. Can I just tell you that he was so worth the wait? He is truly amazing, and it only gets better every day. The courtesies and niceties and love just increase. We are a team in every way, and I love it. So much good can be done being on the same page in life, and we intend to do all we can to help and serve others. I wouldn't trade my journey of those 30 years of being single for anything. In fact, I've learned more than ever that God knows what's best for us. He knew what I needed to go through and learn and the same goes for Daryl. His journey prepared him for me as well. We are both so grateful for our past and our lives together. I just feel so blessed. Well, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great day. And I hope you're able to resolve some issues in your life by tackling the real problems and not taking the easy way out with the Tic Tacs. Also, if you want to be notified by YouTube of the next podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and it should let you know on your YouTube app that I've posted another podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.